tooth. Going on radio, starting a business, which is what we love to talk about on Hustle Hard. Starting your family, talking to a girl, talking to a guy. The first time of anything is going to be scary, especially if you're like an adult or learning new skills. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be scary, but it's also worth it. So trying new things helps you discover hidden potential. Stepping out of your comfort zones fosters growth. Trying new things helps you to find your passion. And George is big on talking about, the bigger picture. Yes, you're on earth, but what is it that you were actually really created for? Is your passion serving a purpose, or is it still just being hidden somewhere underneath there and you don't want to come through and dig it out? Zig Ziglar says, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. George Billionaire tells us more on how we can start this. So as we unpack it, get your notebooks out, park the car on the side of the road. But if you're in a hurry, just continue driving. If you are chilling in the office, plug in those earphones, the AirPods, pretend you're typing some serious emails. But you all know that you are tuned in to Hustle Hard. Holla, holla, George.
Holla, holla.
You were blinking a few minutes ago.
It's your boy, George Billionaire.
Now you're very much awake.
Very much, as always. And it's always good to be here on Capi Talk. And Gustav, what it is?
Can I call you Jorge?
It depends which country you're in.
Because money, when it comes to the money thing, I like the whole money thing, you know what I'm saying?
All right.
The whole money thing, Ana Pablo, what?
Yeah, mafia.
Jorge,
yes, Italian mafia.
Oh, so you had to ask, like, in what way, really? Like, hold up. Yes, I like that, but how?
Yeah. No, I don't have a problem with that. I've got many friends, and they have different pronunciations.
Many sense in different places.
Yorgo, your hair, whichever one it is. But it's always good to be here on Hustle Hard. And last week I was away doing some work, and we're back in studio. And it's always good to be here every single Monday. And one of the greatest things, Becky, I love on this show is the amount of impact we're making.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's always good to get feedback. People are always saying we're tuned in, our lives are changing. People are coming up to me and saying, hey, George, many months back you kept on talking about what if you lose your job and things go south, what are you going to do? And I met somebody who started a side hustle and who happened to lose his job 2 months back, and he said the words you were talking about on air gave me that inspiration, and now I no longer have a salary, but now that side hustle that I started earlier this year is actually what's sustaining me. So it's amazing what's happening in the country now. George's message is always don't rely on your job.
Absolutely.
And one thing we've seen in the current country of Zimbabwe and even across board, we're seeing a lot of people being retrenched. We're seeing AI taking a lot of people's jobs. We're seeing downsizing in a lot of corporates. And that's something that's ultimately going to happen in all sectors, believe it or not. So this message is going to become very relevant very soon, sooner than people know.
I can imagine not being able to come to radio because AI.
Something would have happened.
It's taken my job.
And this is what's happening. And people need to get that realization that as much as we are talking on air and people are being motivated, the most important thing is actually to say, if it were me, what would I do? Take it personally and actually put it practically into reality, because it's going to happen sooner than later, believe you me. But until it happens, we don't want you to have that simulation, which I always talk about. There's a simulation that I always give people, that if you had 2 minutes in heaven, God showing you potentially what you could have been, and then coming back, you definitely would become less fearful of certain things. You would stop procrastinating about certain things, and you will actually see, wait a minute, it's not about the capital, it's just an idea I need, it's just a relationship I need, it's just starting off where I am, and then a little on a little, soon what I'm doing will become great. So it's important people get that message clearly. Do you know what? Do not be comfortable where you are. Do not settle in the comfort zone. And that's the greatest trap in life, with majority of people who are working, who are sustaining themselves, and they forget that life has seasons. And in those seasons, there are time to harvest and get the most. But with your harvest, it's also what you do with it that continues to give you income, especially later on in the years when you become gray and old. I have a father who's 86 years old, and the greatest investment he put was in us, his children.
Right.
And he's got a couple of investments of himself. But trust you me, those things then take care of you at a later age. But then to majority of people, they are eating hand to mouth. And if you lost your job today, nas how are you going to sustain? How are you going to look for another
It's
job?
always that sustaining question.
Yeah, you see, how are you going to get another job where there aren't other jobs and there are other younger, vibrant people who want less of a salary than what you are expecting?
And I'm very happy
for
with
you
it.
to maintain your standard that you're living. So, it goes on today's topic. You don't know the potential you have or the possibility of the outcomes that can come out until you try. And we've had so many stories, and we've spoken about them on the show. We've spoken about Thomas Edison, the guy who created the light bulb, and how people laughed at him and said you failed, and all he was doing was perfecting his craft. And he says, I'll repeat, we all know the story, it's not that I failed 1,000 times,
I learned.
but I learned how not to make this thing that now all households in the world are using, and he is making money off every single thing.
Let me just hold you there on that. As you were explaining it, giving us the opening, the intro of today's topic, you mentioned your father. Yeah, he's of age, and I've seen how you're looking after your dad. And I know a lot of young people want that. They want to be able to look after their parents just as, not just a good gesture, but out of the bottom of their heart, they're just like, this is what I would love to do for my parents. I'd like to make sure my parents are comfortable. Even if I don't manage to take them out of the place where we grew up, whether it's the ghetto, Kanakumusha, or whatever, but just to make sure that they're comfortable in the place where they're staying, they've got enough food, they've got clothing, all the utilities sorted and paid. Then you brought another aspect of age. So my question is then going to be on the age part. A lot of people are scared to try out new things because they're saying, I'll give you an example. I have an uncle of mine, did wonderful in business for like 40 odd years. And now the business is not doing so. Still a very relevant business. He's into hardware. Still very relevant business. But I don't know if I can say failing to adjust to the new way or the new trends or the new things that people are introducing in the hardware industry, or if he is literally just tired. So if he's listening right now in his 50 Chakuti odd years, what's the message to him? Someone of that age who's saying, George, but that chembera, that neta.
Yeah, the age is big.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's an amazing question, and to he who is wise and knowledgeable, you know that wisdom and knowledge has no age.
Okay.
And when it comes to the 21st century, with our generation now, we are more techy. We know what's going on, and I love two of my mentors, three of them, Dr. Chandiwana, Dr. Philip Chiangwa, and Dr. Steve Magolis. They always see me on social media and say, we love your vibrance. What is it that we can do that can keep us relevant and adjust in some of the things that we do to remain relevant in the current day and age? So what the older generation failed to do is it's reverse integration. Right now, the way they did business back in the day was newspaper adverts, was word of mouth, but things have changed. So you'll find there are new players coming on board, and you need to hang around with people who add value to what you lack. So deliberate association with the younger generation, how they do business, how they can keep your brand relevant and visible is key. So it's important to not do business. The greatest challenge with businesses remaining relevant is a simple thing called adapting to change. Right? When you fail to adapt to change, we know the story about Nokia and why they, lost out of the great market share they had.
Right.
Your uncle's business could have been great at the time, but due to failing to adapt to change, there are now modern ways of doing business. There's now direct delivery. We'll deliver things to you. There are online shops. People don't want to go into town. I heard you talking about, those guys.
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah, who are clamping everybody. So if you have a business in town, you always have to have things that make your product or service accessible to people, right? But if it's the olden way of, waiting for customers to walk in, gone are those days, because nowadays things have changed. And when it comes to age, Becky, we have an amazing story of Sir Colonel Sanders, who started his business when he was 65, right? His chicken selling business, and which is well known all over the world. Saka, in business, there's nothing called age or you're too old.
Really?
Being old is a mindset.
Is it not like location also?
No, it's not location. It's a mindset, because if you think you are old, and somebody who is old is somebody who is not productive. As long as you can stand up, wakaenda kumusha kune vanhu vari kurima. You cannot tell kuti munda warimwa nemunhu ane 10 years or 60 years.
Come on now.
At the end of the day, the harvest is the same. Now in life and in business, money is money. Money has no age. So it's important to have relevance in saying, okay, as long as I'm still able, I can do something. So there are people who always say I'm too old. As long as you have the oxygen, the energy to breathe, to walk and do something, trust to me, anything is possible to he who believes. So, the essence of you never know what you can do till you try. I've spoken about Thomas Edison. We have greats in this country, Strive Masiwa. We have greats in any sector. And what they did compared to everybody else is that they tried something that nobody else did. And at the end of the day, they got results that other people didn't. And they may not have been believed in. I've told my story about how when I began my journey, my father, who I love so much, spoke and said, George, I see you in tattered clothes. He had a dream. And had he told me that and I had accepted that,
I wouldn't have been scared, by the way.
wouldn't have.
I've never responded to that, but
Yeah.
I would have been scared.
And you see, to my dad, who is somebody who I love so much, get it correctly. And I always say this to people who are spiritual. Whenever you are closest to something great, there's always some form of negative talk which will come and distract and hinder you and try and blow out that flame in you.
That's when
for
you
you
know
not
you're close.
to go where you're supposed to go. And this is where a lot of people lose out. And this is why when on that screen, when you go to heaven and you're shown that simulation, you'll be shown just when that guy came. Had you listened to your dad, George, you wouldn't be where you are today, because you would have remained with your job, just over broke, earning $300 with your kids, managing your life with that resource. But you did not know that there was a certain entrepreneur in you, a product, a service, that only if you tried would you have seen could it worked. Now for me, imagine I tried, right? And it's not the first thing I tried.
Okay.
Remember, I've told people stories about my phone shop that got demolished.
Yeah.
I've told people about hustling at the University of Zimexmo, where I
Best
graduated
university.
with my faculty of hustle. I tried. I went to the paint people where I worked. I tried. I tried a lot of things. But then he who tries more, right, always has different experiences and lessons. And we've always abbreviated the word fail. People say you failed. He failed. He failed. And failure is an opinion of someone on your life. Whereas failure is not what people think of. It's you. Now, if I fail today, guess what? I learn how not to do something that I did wrong. Now, failure abbreviated is first attempt in learning.
Yeah.
Right? And if people learn and learn, I'm one person who failed my O levels. I was laughed at. I was mocked. I could have decided not to go back.
Look who's laughing now.
Right? But then I rewrote and I passed. When they look at people who passed, am I considered a failure or I passed?
You passed.
I passed. It doesn't matter how many times. But then that's the same thing with business. That's the same thing with stepping out and doing something. You always learn from every experience. When I was grade 6, I started my first business selling freezers to Glenora.
Right.
Do you know what I learned at grade 6?
What did you learn at grade
That
6?
when you give your friends a freezer on credit, trying to get your money back after wapedza freeze it yovanakirwa. It's a great lesson that I learned, that do not give credit to people, because when you are following up your payment, it will seem as though you are asking for a loan. But do you know what? Because I tried earlier on, all these things that people deem are failures were all lessons. And to he who tries more than others, he has more wisdom, more experiences, more things that are in him, which then define him for what he wants to be in life. Now, there's so many people listening to us today. Becky, you've always said, George, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And this is another announcement to people.
Okay.
That this thing called your job, which you are so attached to, which you are so reliant on, thinking this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life and this is my single stream of income. Get this correctly. Just now in South Africa, there was snow, right? There were workers on a farm, right, who were taking care of cattle. The snow came. All cows died. No more job. No more reliant on anything. Imagine that can happen to any organization.
Yeah.
Years back we had COVID, right? That came. Do you know how many people became unemployed by just the blink of an eye? What can you claim anything from the companies
Absolutely
you're
nothing,
working from?
Nothing.
But to he or she who starts something of their own, a side hustle, something, when you try something. For me, one thing I was always like young, I was always the daring type. I was always
You
fearless.
still are, George. You still
I'm that
are.
person who says, "Kusiri kufande kupi,"
Yeah.
because you don't want to say, "I wish I had." We know our favorite Shona saying, "Dai kufunga."
Oh, kwe.
Yeah, right. Dai ndaka, dai ndaka.
If
And for me, I don't want to be that guy who regrets not ever trying. And to he who keeps regretting, who keeps blaming the economy, the currency, back to the same old, if a political party, it's too cold, and that's holding you back from trying, you know what's going to happen? You're going to become old and gray. And our favorite question, Becky, your kids are going to ask you, Dad,
what
Mom,
were you doing?
when others were doing things which were productive, what were you doing? And with kids, they don't understand dinner, or no, you can't go on this trip, or no, we can't go on holiday. They don't understand
No,
that.
they don't.
But those are deliberate choices you are making today, where you are thinking that one stream of income is okay. But trust you me, don't be somebody like the person who called me and told me how beneficial this show is, and how after hearing this program they decided to use their salary, which is a seed, and not consume it in full, but to actually try something on the side. And that letter came, thank you for your service, for working with this organization for 15 years, he said. But unfortunately, we have to let some top management go. And that was
15 years and you get a letter and like an envelope or something in your account.
And get this correctly, it always happens. No matter where you're working, it could be 30, it depends what organization you're working with. There's some multinational companies or some blue chip companies that of course will give you a decent pay. But understand this, to somebody who was working, whose fees for his kids were being paid for, whose fuel was being put in,
right there.
or there was a grocery. Things change. Even if you get whatever money, remember that money from the day you get it is going to be consumed. It's not coming back, because every day there are certain things now you have to pay for, and it's all being consumed. But without something you're investing in, without something you are trying. And the thing with starting off, a lot of people don't like to start off small. They don't want the little profits. But if you put a little on a little, all big companies today began in the back of their garage. I started Pro Air in my 2-door sports car. Right? I went in office at Robin House. Start small, but with time, with consistency, with at least learning from others. You start small, but in due course, that tree will become a tree which has fruit. But it started off as a little seed. And your trying is actually putting that seed into the ground and watering it and making sure that, you know what, it's growing. So a lot of people don't want to try.
It's 10 minutes to 1 o'clock. We've got George Billionaire in studio. Yes, he's looking at the watch like 10 to already. Yes, 10 to already. Questions, comments, contributions coming through 0719 100 404. George, the story, the line that you just gave us, I picked something there. You literally reframed your mind. How did you do it? Did you tell yourself certain words? Were there certain motivational quotes that you stood by? Were they scriptures? Were they people? Because you're big on association. Reframing your mind to say, I'm going to start anyway. Okay, right, let's try another one. Number 10 some freeze all right, I'll pay on credit. What to can phone shop. Oh, yeah, paperwork, you know, all of that. How did you then reframe your mind to say, I'm going to get this business thing correct? I will work for someone, but one day I am going to get this business thing correct.
So, Becky, I worked 6 years for other people. I think I've said this, and you know, I think it's good people know I worked in a clothing shop at Wallace Boutique, Cimex Mall. I worked in an internet cafe, along with all these other things I said. But one thing for me, when I had twins, I had to make a deliberate choice, because me, out of all my friends, I didn't have a university degree to fall back on. The last education I had when I started Pro A was my A-level results. And for me, I had no option. So people who don't have an option are people who succeed. I always tell people, if you have a plan B, definitely plan A is not going to work, because you have an alternative plan.
So are you saying we mustn't have like backup?
For me, this is me, and this is my belief. To all the people who I ever sat down with, all these great entrepreneurs in Zimbabwe, they became laser focused, Focus. They followed one course until success. They followed one course. They followed one thing. Remember, we did that thing that where we mentioned somebody's name, what comes to your mind. They followed that one thing until that thing began to give them fruit. You see, in the Word of God, it says a double-minded man cannot. So even with you, with whatever you want to do, I was focused on making sure Pro A is going to work. This has to work, because you know what? I can't go back in employment again and earn that amount with what I know I have inside me. I had a hunger as well because of the association and the exposure that I had gotten. So for me, my mindset was always set out, you know what? And this is me. I'm somebody who is very competitive. I'm somebody who, in my mind, whatever I put my mind to, it has to excel. You know, it has to. Even when I play sport and things, if you're on my team, you're guaranteed we're going to win. Because so mindset is everything when you want to become great. If you think you're going to fail, most likely, according to your faith of failing, you are going to fail.
Exactly, that's what you're going to do.
So for me, I've always believed that Pro Air is going to be the top leading air conditioning company in this country. I believed it, I spoke it, and I also had a work ethic towards it. And I knew it was going to take time, but I had to step out and begin to work at it and declare it and have a serious work ethic. And you know what? Ultimately, we then got those awards.
So there was character building throughout that
it's
whole
important.
process.
And you know, with many people, like I said earlier about my dad, some of you, your friends, they're people's opinions. Becky, Mike MC, you will never become great. Who do you know who had a living with MCing and etc.? There are people's opinions which can define you. But to he who knows, but you know what? There's something in me that is greater than what people assume and think about me. Those are the people who make it. All these greats, all these soccer players who were told, we've spoken about the late Dr. Oliver Mtukudzi. He was beat up by his father for playing the guitar, and he had to go next door to practice because Kumba Ranjarambizwa. But look what it did in years later. Same with all these great people. So when you listen to the opinions of people, trust me, you'll never become what you're supposed to do or be in life. So it's important you stay true to that thing that you know what? I want and I'm going to succeed. It's important you have that mindset and the work ethic. and you do also what others are not doing. When you start a business, change your association, hang out with business-minded people. Otherwise, if you keep hanging around with the chickens, which no offense to anybody, they always will be chickens and egos, but hanging around with egos provokes you. The ego conversations are more about how do we grow, how do we lift each other up. I did this instead, and that helped me grow. But at the chicken conversation, there's nothing productive. They are saying, this month, you see, you didn't make sales, Becky. Come back to the yards where we get fed food, which is the job. But remember what we said, nothing grows in the comfort zone. And if you do not try, you will never know. There are so many things that you could have brought to life that you're only going to see when you go up there. Remember, the first heaven we live on is here on earth. Right? But to those who'd never try, you were supposed to start air conditioning and provide all these products for these people. But because you stayed at that job and did nothing else, you didn't bring that. You didn't employ people. You were supposed to employ people. You were supposed to be world known. But because you stayed comfortable until that job, 40 years serving in an organization, you leave, you get a letter, there's no legacy. And this is why the late Dr. Miles Monroe says the richest place on earth is the graveyard, because people died without fulfilling their true potentials because they didn't try. Why blame the economy? And you know what I love about Zimbabwe, Becky? An amazing country. Look left, right, north, south, east, west. There is growth everywhere. As much as you may have something negative to say, look at the amount of development that others who are in the same country you are in,
same environment,
they are opening new this, they are growing, and yet you, because you are not willing to try, are saying there are too many people in this field. No, I don't think I'll make it. But trust you me, a crocodile became big, but it started in a little egg, and it then grew. So when you begin that journey of 1,000 miles,
it may look like nothing is happening.
But when you look back, Becky, the greatest thing I ever did was to try in 2012. And when I look back,
he even remembers the year. It was 2012.
On the 1st of April, 2012. I
Gustav,
look
where
back,
were you in 2012?
and I'm amazed that, wow, that was me back then. And I look at myself today and I'm like, wow, the best decision you ever made, George, was to take that step of faith. So I don't regret.
We've got young guys like Anna Gustav, and maybe some of your staff members are like young people. Maybe you've got mature ones. When you speak to them, do you really like grill it into them? Like, guys, yes, you are working here at Pro Air, but I want to hear that you are doing something.
It's amazing, Becky, that there's so many air conditioning companies that have come out of me. There's so many people who've grown and gone and become great.
No way.
So in life, everybody is on a journey, right? And that journey, trust me, all companies that have started in this country, they used to work for somebody, everybody, before they started their own. Remember, we spoke about Amairi Baker Samba. She used to work, Zodwa used to work somewhere.
Yeah.
Nigel Chanakira, Strive, Masiwa, all these people used to work for something similar to what they did. But then you have to be, especially with me, I always tell people, if you hang around with me, there's an entrepreneur that will come out of you because of your mindset will be changed, and you'll say, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to pass off opportunities regularly. Your mindset will be changed.
So what we're going to do one day on Hustle Hard, we're going to just randomly pick one of your staff members and bring them to work. You all got up and sofa to Tarane. And
you'll be amazed.
I'm sure. We've got 2 minutes or like a minute. Gustav, are there any questions, comments, contributions?
People just saying, I'm going to more man.
I said, I do. Clap. And you know, people will catch feelings every time when you do that. But
true.
George likes it. He likes making people uncomfortable.
But it's necessary. Sometimes you need to be told. You kind of need to be told.
Yeah. I think
rip the band-aid off.
People who are never provoked never level up.
They never level up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like we always say, you don't know how poor you are until you go to a rich man's house, because you'll be provoked. When you go back to your little one room and this, you'll be provoked to say,
there's
wait
a car
a minute.
I entered this weekend.
Yeah.
Hey,
You see, you go back to your car and you're
Hey!
like, wait a minute.
I went back to my car. I said, Lord,
Why?
why?
And Becky, it's according to
Hey,
your faith.
keep quiet. There's a
Hallelujah.
statement that you actually said. I think we need to take it up from there for next week.
Yeah.
You said, be willing to do what others are not willing to do. I've heard that statement, but no one has ever really come to say, these are the things that other people are doing that you should be doing. Can you take us through that next week, Monday?
Definitely.
Those things that other people are doing, the things that George did. Did George sleep at midnight or 3 a.m.? Or what was George doing that other people were not willing to do? And here we have Pro A. Don't hold out on the information, George. Don't hold out. It is 1 o'clock, time for the news. Last week we had George Billionaire over the phone, and one comment came through about Manchester United, and then your phone cut. And,
Yes.
and then we lost you. So today at Zoga.
This weekend.
Right. Please go to the news.